Hello everyone, and welcome to Chapter 1, Use of Assessment in Counseling. So now, before we dive in, I just want to check in. I know that there was some stress and anxiety about this class. I can feel it through the screen. I know what you're thinking. You signed up for counseling because you like people and you don't like numbers. You want to hear feelings and not compute standard deviations. So let's start the day off with addressing the elephant in the room. You probably expected this class to be like advanced calculus and have chalkboards full of terrifying equations. But breathe. Here's the reality. Assessment isn't about that. It's not about becoming a human calculator. It's about listening, empathy, and understanding. The goal here is real simple. Understand the human, patient, client, whatever you call them, not just the number. And I promise we aren't going to turn your clients into data points. We're just learning a new language to be able to help them better. That's what this class is about. So, speaking of trauma, how about we talk about your testing experiences? I want you to reflect for a moment. What is the most memorable test you've ever taken? Was it the SAT or the GRE or a driver's license test where you parallel parked on the curb? No, just me. How did that score impact your view of yourself? So I know that we're here and we're not in person, so you can click pause on the video and take some time to really reflect on that. And I want you to think, why do we remember these moments so vividly? So I think we remember these moments vividly because society does an excellent job of attaching our worth to those moments, right? But in this class, we're going to challenge that. Nay, what do you say? We're going to get rid of it. So in order to do that, first, we have to get our definitions straight so that we sound professional at parties, I guess. So assessment. Assessment is this big umbrella term. It's the broad process of gathering a bunch of data in order to form a hypothesis or an educated guess, right? I'm taking it back to your 6th or 7th grade science class right here. So under that umbrella of assessment, we have tests and measurements. So tests are standardized snapshots, right? Like I'm holding a camera, but you guys, this is a camera. Snapshots like the GRE or the MMPI or the SAT or that one time. Anyways, and then measurement is just that score attached to it, right? The score itself. What that score is doing is it's measuring the degree to which a trait that it's measuring exists. Yeah, I know that seems kind of confusing. So let me give you something a little bit more fun. So let's talk about the BuzzFeed method, right? So if we look at it under this context, a test is like taking a quiz called "Which Harry Potter house are you?" Okay. Measurement is the result. So measurement is saying you're 90% Hufflepuff, which by the way means you're loyal, hardworking, and probably like snacks, whatever. But assessment, big picture, okay? It's taking that Hufflepuff score, combining it with the fact that you're sitting there crying over a breakup and realizing, okay, this client is a loyal person who is currently heartbroken. So the assessment then is taking the data plus clinical judgment and forming your decision, what to do, your plan, right? So see, it's not math, it's detective work. And who doesn't like a good crime podcast? I know I do. So we do have to learn a little bit of science. There's a little science talk. Yes, I'll concede. We will have some science and math talk, but just a little bit, okay? So let's talk about variables. So there is the IV, or the independent variable, and that is the cause. In our world, that's usually like the therapy type or the intervention or the program. Then there's the dependent variable, which is the DV, and that is the outcome, okay, like a depression score changing. And then there are these nasty things that show up at the party and you didn't invite them, called the extraneous variables, okay. That's the noise. That's the blah, 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 blah. That's the client showing up cranky because they had a bad night's sleep and you have to deal with it, right? So we can't control that, but it definitely messes with our data, right? It messes with everything we're trying to do. So these conditions, right, or these definitions are a little bit dry. So I invited for this class only a guest speaker. I'm going to let the world's most famous plumber help me explain this to you. So picture this, all right? Look at the question mark block right here. That represents the independent variable in the game Super Mario Brothers. And if you haven't played it, then we have bigger issues than testing measurements, but that's neither here nor there, okay? In the game, the block is the catalyst. So Mario hits the block he like punches it and something happens. So in our counseling world, the block is like the counseling intervention, right? It represents the therapy technique or the program that we're introducing to the client's life to try and make a change, right? We're trying to make something happen, okay? And so what comes out of the block? Well, in this case, in this example, it's the star. So the star is the dependent variable. The star is the result. It's the power up. The block, IV, caused the star DV to appear. So in counseling, the star is the outcome. It's the client feeling more confident, their anxiety score going down. It's the shiny result that we were all hoping for. But then let's not forget about the person or whatever, the extraneous variable, in this case, the Goomba, okay? So the Goomba here, pow, 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 there goes Mario. I did that. Yes, I did. The Goomba is the random enemy that wanders into the level. So if Mario does not jump on top of him, gets hit by him, then there goes the powers from the star, okay? So maybe in your case counseling, your client is sick or they got stuck in traffic or they're just having a bad hair day, right? We didn't invite the Goomba, the extraneous variable, and we can't always control it, but it definitely affects the game. Hopefully that helps you to remember. Next, we're going to talk about scales of measurement or rules of measurement. When we look at these, there are 4. There's nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. So I want you to think of the French word noir, right? Or you can think of Cat Noir from Miraculous Ladybug, who's in the corner. If you know, you know. All right, so first we have nominal. So nominal is a category that's like just names, just categories, okay? So like gender, marital status, right? There's no specific order to them, right? No one says like first is people who are married and second is people who are single and whatever. There's no order to them, okay? Now, if we want order, then we go to ordinal. Here, order matters, okay? There's ordered rankings. So first place, this is your Likert scales, whatever. So this is like coming in first, second, or third place, but we don't know the distance between them. The intervals are unknown. Now, if we want to look at the intervals, interval, right? Interval has equal distances between them, but the difference between interval and what we're going to see in ratio is that interval has no true zero. So I want you to think about temperatures or a thermometer. You know how it has the equal distances between them and it goes below zero. There's no true zero. It doesn't cut off at that. Then lastly, we have ratio. So this is a big one, right? This one has a true zero. So this is like income and weight and time. And if you have zero income, that is a very real zero, okay? So remember that. So ratio, 0, okay? And we're gonna come back to these later on in the chapter, so don't feel like you have to memorize all of it right now, but if you do, that's cool too. All right, so why do we bother with all of this? Like, why not just have our clients come in, sit down and go, how are you? And boom, we're done. We can't, right? Because assessment does 4 big things. 1, we use it for screening. So we want to catch our issues early, okay? Identifying needs of the clients immediately, okay? Then we use it for diagnosis. So speaking a common language with other pros and, yes, Insurance companies, boo. Then we use it for treatment planning, so figuring out if what we're doing is actually working. And then setting goals and monitoring their progress, right? And then we use it for advocacy. So sometimes you need actual numbers to fight for resources for your client. Okay, so of all of this, my favorite part is here. So in doing this, we operate from the wellness model. So there's the medical model that says, what is wrong with you, right? They don't say it that aggressively, but just follow me here. So they're looking at pathology, right? In the wellness model, we ask, what is strong with you, okay? We're holistic. We're looking at their mind, their body, their spirit, okay? Even when we test, we are looking for strengths that we can build on. So I want you to think of assessment as a 5-step problem-solving model. So the first one is problem orientation. We recognize there's an issue, okay? Problem identification, we clarify exactly what that issue is. Generation of alternatives, we're gonna brainstorm some solutions. We know there's a problem, what can we do about it? Decision making, we're gonna pick the best path. And then verification, we're gonna come back later on and check, did that work, okay? So I wanna end this little section with a disclaimer. Okay, a test score is not a tattoo. It does not define your worth. It does not measure your soul, and it definitely doesn't predict your future with 100% accuracy, because I'm a pretty good driver nowadays, right? Something 20 years later. If a client scores high on a depression score, it doesn't mean that they are depression. It just means that they're experiencing it right now, okay? It's a piece of the cake. It's a slice of the cake, not the whole cake, okay? Additionally, with assessment, we do have to talk about the dark side of assessment. So historically, tests have been used to marginalize people. They have been culturally biased and used to justify discrimination. So as counselors, we have to be critical consumers. Before we administer a test, we have to ask, is this test fair for my specific client? All right. So now let's do a little time travel and go over the history of it. And I know you guys can just pass through this if you want to, because I get a little excited about it. But did you know that testing goes all the way back to 2200 BC? So the ancient Chinese used civil service exams to place their government officials. If you failed that exam, you didn't work, okay? So then fast forward up to Darwin in the 1800s, he made us realize that the individual differences were a thing worth looking at. All right, pretty cool. So he set the stage for measuring how people differ. Then came the brass instrument guys, okay? Wundt and Galton. They thought that intelligence was physical. They used these weird metal instruments to measure how fast you could react to a sound, okay? So literally, if you could click a button fast, they thought you were a genius, okay? It sounds silly now, but these guys were the birth of psychology, and they helped psychology become a measurable science. So they established it, even if their theory was wrong. Still pretty cool. Then the game changer was Alfred Binet in 1905. You guys probably know of this guy. The French government asked him to find a way to identify kids who were struggling in school so that they could get help, right? And so note that intent, by the way, it was about assistance and not about exclusion. So he created the first test of complex mental tasks, the great grandfather of the IQ test that we use today. All right, the first modern scale of intelligence. So then came World War I. The military needed to screen 1.5 million recruits, and they didn't have time for Binet's individual interviews. Okay, so they had to create something fast. So what they did was they created the Army Alpha test that was for readers, and the Army beta test for non-readers. So if you look at this maze that I have on the left side here in the pictures, okay, imagine your entire military career depending on how fast you could complete that maze. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'd be pretty high up in the rankings, but anyways, this was the birth of efficiency in testing. We're going to talk about efficiency a little bit later, but is the test efficient, right? Like having somebody go through a maze as fast as possible, does that dictate their ability to lead a nation? We're going to leave Trump out of this. Okay, so next, this is important for your identity as counselors here. So our field didn't start with Freud on a couch, even though that's my guy, and I love Freud, I'm a Freudian. But it started with this guy, Frank Parsons. And so Frank Parsons was helping people to find jobs. So he would use assessments to match people's characteristics and their traits to careers. So when you hate on assessment, remember it is part of our DNA. Shout out to Frank Parsons, who is long gone. And finally, personality assessments. Y'all know about personality assessments. We had two paths diverge here. Okay, we have the projective path that gave us the Rorschach ink blots, right? Where we analyze your unconscious bias on what you see in a smudge, all right? And then the objective path, which gave us the MMPI, which is hundreds, like 500 of true false questions to statistically track your pathology. Both, surprisingly, are still used today. So let's pause for a second. We talked about the Army Alpha being created for speed. Where do we see that today? I want you to think about standardized tests in schools. Are they timed? Does speed play an influence into it? Or those personality quizzes that you take when you're applying for a retail job, or some colleges have the personality quizzes that they require people to take. My daughter just got accepted to Kent State's professional pilot program, and she had to take a Casper exam. Look at the Casper test. It's very interesting, but it's a personality profile. They want to make sure that her personality would align with what they've deemed a pilot, I suppose. Very interesting. So looking at these, are we sacrificing these individual interviews and the individual human story just to get data faster in these cases? I don't know. Think about it. Boop. All right. So when you're picking a test, all right, let's get into this. Selecting an assessment, the 6 key questions, and I'll fix this for us. So, when you are picking a test, there are 6 things that you want to look at. I'm going to leave that. And so you basically have to play a journalist, okay? The who, the what, the where, the when, the why, the how, okay, a journalist. You need to ask the WH questions because context is literally everything, okay? So who is giving the data? Is it the client or is it their mom who likely has a very different opinion on their behavior than they do, okay? That happens often. What are we trying to measure? Is it anxiety or did they just drink 3 Red Bulls before the session? Or Starbucks, venti size, okay? We need to know if it's mood, cognitive ability, or behavior, okay? Where is this happening, right? The behavior that we're observing or that we're trying to assess, where is it happening? Is it a nice, quiet clinic or a chaotic high school hallway during a fire drill? Like, where are we seeing this behavior emerge? And then when? Is this our first date or intake? Or are we checking in after 6 months to see if our brilliant therapy is working, right? And then why? Why are we screening? Or are we diagnosing so insurance will actually pay us? Real talk. And then finally, we have tiers of service. which sounds like a fancy internet package, but it's really just about the intensity here. So assessment happens at every single level. It ranges from a school counselor doing a quick vibe check, screening in the hallway, all the way up to a psychologist doing a full-blown battery exam that takes 8 hours, 3 breaks, tons of snacks. This is the second time I brought up snacks. Clearly I'm hungry. But anyways, whether it's a quick check-in or a deep dive, it is all assessment. Right? It's that umbrella. And exhale. You made it. We got through chapter 1 and nobody had to do any calculus. So yes, to wrap this all up into a nice little ball, assessment is not scary math. It's just organized empathy. We use the wellness model because we care about what is right with people, not just what's wrong. And we always ask, is this test fair or is it total garbage for the human sitting in front of me? Okay. So next week or next video, we will cover chapter 2, the assessment interview, where you're going to learn how to ask these questions without making it awkward. So how about you go reward yourself with some snacks because you did it. As always, if you need something, do not forget the A in my email. All right, guys, see you real soon. Bye.